back to this episode of Transitioning Humanitarians Live with Viki. Hi, Viki.
Hi, Asel. Hello, everyone.
So today that we decided to talk about one particular topic that came up in our coaching sessions that is a very difficult topic. It's a dilemma that some of the humanitarians may be going through or navigating through. And the dilemma is, who do I choose between parents or the partner or the husband or the boyfriend, the girlfriend, right? So when we feel like we are like in between, wanting to somehow please or wanting to go for what we want at the same time, what to do with the parents' desire that may not match our desire, and how do we navigate the situation. So that's the topic that we're talking about, and because it's a very challenging topic and emotionally charged,
Yeah.
we will try our best to help you navigate through this decision with stories and also with some suggestions for you to think about. But Vicky, let's start with the question of, who would you choose?
Um, you are addressing it directly. Who would you
I
choose? But
know.
I don't think I can give you a direct answer, and I think nobody in a right
Yeah.
mindset and heart set would actually give you straight an
Mm.
answer straight ahead that you choose this or that. So what I would suggest to first look at is look at what are we dealing with? What are we what is this actually at hand? And so we have two relationships. We have a person's relationship to parents, and person's relationship to the loved person who she wants to spend time, life with, marriage, etc. So one relationship is really good with the person that person chose, but of course we have the second relationship, which of course is at stake. So what kind of, and very often people might find themselves, it's either or. And whenever
Yeah.
we find ourselves in a situation either or, it's a very demobilizing perspective. It's always very demobilizing because it seems that there is nothing else in this world we can choose. But if
Yeah.
we dig deeper, if we ask the right questions, we realize that there are more options than two options. So I think this is maybe the first thing I would like to say. Don't go for either or, because that's a very, very difficult position that will never be good for anyone. So search
Yeah.
for a different perspective, and maybe I will stop here with the first perspective.
Amazing. So the way that I was thinking about is that, like, first, what if we don't need to choose? And the way that I mean it is that let's detach the person from what they are saying, a bit like what Vicky was saying, right? And gaining the perspective. But also, like, if we look at, okay, the parents want us to follow this path because they believe it's the path that's good for us, obviously, right? I don't think parents have any, like, ill intentions in any way. Anyway. At the same time, our path that we are wanting to go for is a different one. So now we have two options that we can then say, which one do I want to follow or which one I can follow, and what am I going to do about the other path? And here I would like to make it very personal and tell a story from my brother's situation. And this is like 25 years ago now, or maybe more than this. So as I was growing up, my brother married someone that my parents didn't like. And the dislike was to such an extent that my father actually uh, asked my brother to divorce and remarry, basically, right? And unfortunately, where I come from, this type of conversations happen fairly often, I fear. So therefore, it's not in any way like the unique situation to my
Mhm.
family situation. But I think what was unique about this is though is that my father, like, used to be so aggressive about this and violent that my brother eventually ended up leaving our home and going with his wife. And when someone like look at the situation, they may say, well, he chose her, right? He chose to be with the wife and he didn't choose parents. That's how it
Mhm.
may look like. But then as I grew up,
Mhm.
like I love my brother and we always stayed in touch. I used to visit him, and one of the things he said that really struck me is that he said that, well, parents you never choose, they are always there,
Mhm.
right? Therefore, I never like chose not to be having my parents anymore because you can't do that. But I chose to be with the person that I really wanted to build this family together. And that was at the time in his heart the right decision. And then what I realized from that conversation also for my life later is that when the situations became like, okay, like, what do you choose, the studying or marriage that my father proposed? I had the example, right? I had the example from my brother who said, I chose love basically in that moment, even though it may sound very cliche. But I think that was like a, for me at least, a very good example of someone who said, I'm not saying that I'm choosing between my parents or partner or wife in this case, but I'm choosing to go for love, and that's where the path is taking. Parents come to terms, and then if they don't, we will discuss things, but still, that was the decision that he made. And that's why I think the story that I wanted to tell you is really to say, think about the consequences of those decisions on not only your life when you're making this, but also on like siblings and other people around you, right? And I think if it hadn't been for my father's example, oh, sorry, for my brother's example, I think I wouldn't have had this very radical standpoint
Mhm.
on like choosing something that's very difficult, yet he did do that, and I felt like I followed his footstep in that sense, right? Now, coming back to this situation, is one of the ways that I was thinking of navigating is like once you see that, yes, you are wanting to go for love, and at the same time, you don't want to disappoint parents. And in that moment, what if there are options that we could explore in terms of discussing with parents, if that's an option? That's, I think, one of the ways that, like Vicky was saying, let's not get it into either or situation, but rather let's go and discuss it with the parents to see what happens. If we can't do it directly, maybe there are mediators in between who can help us do this. Usually in my culture, there are siblings who are
Mhm.
there to assist or to whisper to the parents that this daughter of yours is doing this thing or thinking about or whatever it is, right? So there are maybe these type of options that we can explore. What do you think, Vicky?
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing, Asel. It's a very touching story, and I think really that's what we also learned from really other people's examples, especially if those
Yeah.
people are very close to us. So I really resonate with what you're saying in terms of discussion with parents, and even though it may sound really really difficult at the beginning, but there are two crucial questions really I think we need to deal with or get an answer to if possible, and that is, what do you feel? Because all these requests that are coming from parents come from certain feeling. So they might be feeling of hope, feeling of disappointment, feeling of fulfillment, need to fulfill. So what are you feeling currently? Because that will inform a lot of things. And what do you need? Because the parents, as you say, they are reacting in the best interest. So their need is, I want you to be happy. But what does it mean to be happy? What is your image versus my image? So I think these are really two questions that, as you say, might be actually very difficult to ask. So you might need a mediator, somebody who actually is in between, or if it's possible, sometimes you can ask the person, the parents as well. So I believe these two questions, in terms of understanding where is the motivation and how can we find a common perspective, because both of the, if there are both needs satisfied, if the needs of the parents and wants of the young person or the person, that we can come to a common landing or a common ground there. So I believe there is a lot, or there is possibility of advancing here and finding common ground.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing that I want to bring attention to is because oftentimes in such dilemma situations, I think we want to just get away from having this conversation
Mhm.
or hide the relationship or figuring out how else can we continue this relationship without basically letting anyone know kind of arrangements that we may be thinking about, right? And as much as they sound easy in quotes to do, but I want to argue that's actually a lot more difficult
Mhm.
for many reasons, right? I think I don't even need to get into a lot of details, but some of the examples that I have seen of people that are very dear heart to my heart is that the more they hid the relationship, the more they felt like they betrayed someone else or their parents or their own. So basically, they felt like they were disappointing themselves on daily basis of not being able to stand for what they wanted to, or not being able to share this with their loved ones, right? Or not being able to be in public or continuing relationship just like was like in other situations. So there are a lot of like emotional toll on us if we go the route of trying to avoid having the difficult conversation with the parent either directly or through someone else. And therefore I think knowing that of we have basically parents risk of being disappointed or our own disappointment of, and possibly our partner maybe also disappointment of not going for what we actually like our heart is desiring to go for instance, right? I think that's also not easy to handle because we're always in our own, we can experience our own feelings on daily basis, right? But while parents' feelings we may not experience unless we talk to them or we think about them. So that's why that's equally or even maybe more difficult. So that's why in the in the times where your brain wants to suggest that avoiding is a better strategy, let's not listen to that
Mhm.
like exit strategy, but rather like if it's hard either way, right?
Mhm.
Hard going for hiding and being in this situation, or hard having this conversation with the parents who are not really thrilled with our decision or choices or whatever it is, then which are we choosing to go for and handling that? And I think it might be actually much like doable maybe is the word that we have and explore the conversation with parents because of the also the trust that I have, or I think we all do, is that our parents in the end love us, right? That's I think the bottom line. And when people love us they tend to, like after this theme is off and after all of this, they still may see why we're wanting what what we're wanting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you're saying in terms of hard. I saw somewhere the other day, choose your hard, choose,
Mm,
well, because even that is important. So either
yeah.
a temporary, difficult situation in having this conversation and finding some sort of resolution, or really long-term difficult situation.
Yeah.
Um, I would like to offer also a different perspective of looking at this relationship. In systemic coaching, we also call it third entity, and it's really looking not only at, before I mentioned the needs of the two people, the needs and wants of the two people, of the person and the parents. And now, really, if we zoom out and we look at the needs of the relationship, because there is a relationship with that exists between these two or these three people, and really, what is the need of this relationship? And we may really realize that there is a need maybe in terms of growing more fondness, maybe more communication, maybe there is a need that we haven't addressed. So there is one thing I think we would need to look at in terms of what the relationship needs, and also what does the relationship know. What does the relationship know? It may sound a little abstract at the beginning, but there are things that one person knows and all of the individuals know. But what is the relationship knows that the individuals may be not aware of? And here again,
Mm.
it might be a work of a person's, the concerned person. You may also want to call on somebody to help you out with this, to really coach or maybe look at it from a different perspective. But these are really perspectives or questions that I offer to ask oneself when finding yourself in this situation.
Yes. And the other thing that maybe you want to explore as well is that imagine yourself going and having this hard conversation with your parents, whether with your sibling or whoever that you believe can help this conversation, right? Imagine in those moments what your parents are likely to say, what they're likely to like raise their concerns maybe, right? And sometimes we get into this feeling of they have to be supportive and they're not, and my parents are this and my parents are that, and I have been there, so don't worry, this is coming from my own experience. And what I find in those moments is not useful is that wishing parents to be different than they are, I think, is not
Yeah.
helpful. Simply because just because we wish them to be different, they're not going to change, right? So therefore, I think accepting that this is what is currently the situation.
Hmm.
Now, we may not like it, we may have our opinions about it, but that's how they feel, and that's how they're also openly or in some way saying to us. So maybe the conversation that we can imagine could be starting with what would they say? How would they say?
Hmm.
What like what are the ways maybe they will say categorically no, or let's talk about it,
Hmm.
or we are disappointed that you didn't follow the path that we thought you would follow, right? And if they say that, then how are we going to feel?
Hmm.
Because I think for many of us as children, like in front of our parents, when they say, well, I'm disappointed that you didn't do XYZ, I think it would hit me hard simply because I used to be parent pleaser all my life. So, and now I've come to accept that, right? But also knowing that, yes, no matter what they're going to say, I know that I'm not doing anything wrong. And I think that's maybe important to know. Like, just because I am choosing to be with this person or wanting to be doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong, right? So therefore, whatever they're going to say, let's hear it, but also standing by this is what I'm wanting. And if
Yeah.
the conversation went that way, then what do you think will happen? And of course, there's always this worry that how they will take it, whether they will suffer from this, and all of these things. But at the same time, I like want to really believe that yes, they may suffer, but they may also deep down somewhere understand that they can't really force us to do
Hmm.
things that is against our will, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Anything else that we may have missed in this?
I think this is a very difficult subject, and as you say, very emotionally charged. And I would say maybe If you find yourself in this situation, maybe really search for help. Somebody that is genuinely able to guide you, support you without unnecessary bias. Because
Yeah.
I think, as we've mentioned, and also from your example, that it's very emotionally charged, and maybe even one discussion where maybe emotions override our mind might be quite harmful in the long run. So that's why I think knowing yourself, being self-aware, I think it's important also to search for support of somebody.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I think we didn't really mention much about the partner who's involved in this process simply because we focused on the person whose parents we were talking about, and the question was around that. But I think if I can say a few words about the partner who's involved in this process is maybe one of the ways, like it's easy in such situations not wanting to understand it or feeling like, oh, it's too complicated. Why am I even like doing this? Kind of questions may come up, right? But I think in such situations, maybe it's important that focusing on the relationship and the person and basically love around that relationship. And as soon as you like shift the focus on, yes, you both can together find a solution and you can support your partner in finding that solution, whatever that is, while having the understanding of parents'
Yeah,
truth. I think maybe that's easy, like maybe easy is not the word, but at least that's maybe the orientation you could go for. Because if you add layers of how you can't this and you can't that, and you should be able to, and all of this judgment, I think that's an additional difficulty for the person who's already struggling how to solve this or how to address this with the parent, right? And then I think it's something that may be also optional. So that's why I would like to offer to the partner to say, okay, in this moment that's already hard. How can I support the person that I love? What can
mm,
I do? What are the ways I can maybe listen or brainstorm together? Um, what if I believe that we can both do this and go through this together, right? So maybe these might be the best ways to approach it. Okay, so having said this, I think that was already enough. So if you have any questions around this or you want coaching around this, absolutely let us know. We would be happy to assist you and giving you space to get everything out, but at the same time, getting you your own decisions and answers to how you want to navigate this. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, everyone, and see you
take
next.
care of yourself. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.